Hey, you beautiful being. Welcome to Empowered Human. I'm your host, Nina Garcia, and we are going to be diving into doing the work in fun and playful ways. Y'all know me, fun and playful ways, so that we can own our truth and confidently show up everywhere we go. With that said, let's talk about who's going to love this podcast. You are going to love this podcast. If you are like, Nina, that sounds awesome. I would love to own my truth and confidently show up everywhere I go. Check, print, let's do it. Fantastic. You're going to love this podcast. If the idea of doing personal work, identity work, anti-oppression work, liberatory work does not tickle your fancy, it is okay if this is not the podcast for you. But if it is, let's lean in and let me catch you up. Last 2 episodes were all about the empowerment spectrum, the 5 different character profiles, right? The last episode really focused on the difference between the powered and empowered dynamic. If I am not speaking English to you basically in this moment, and you're like, Nina, what are you talking about? You can still take the empowerment spectrum quiz and get to know the 5 different profiles, right? It's all about power dynamics and the way that we can start to actually recognize how we're engaging and how those around us are engaging. Everyone from disempowered to avoidant to codependent to powered to empowered, right? So if you're exploring power dynamics and how you can start to recognize how you are showing up and how others are showing up, that may be a great resource for you. I did promise that we were going to dive in the next 3 episodes into the 3 core pillars of an empowered human in the way that we do empowerment. Yes, capital E empowerment. Okay. Here's what I'm talking about. Courage, healing, belonging. These 3 pillars are at the core of every empowered human. And the deal is, if you were telling me, Nina, I want to be empowered, I want to identify as an empowered human, I want to feel like I can own my truth and confidently show up everywhere I go, fantastic. These 3 items are critical. Having one without the others is not going to prove as capital E empowered as one would hope. I wish it were the case. I wish it were that simple. But we really have found that courage, healing, and belonging, and tools to help us to really do those 3 things, right, are really critical to our growth and our own freedom, right? Our personal freedom to, again, own that truth, right? So this episode is going to focus on courage. We're going to talk about how some people are driven to approach and how some people are driven to avoid, and how what I would really love for your takeaway to be is that you understand how to get back to neutral. Whether you are approach-oriented or avoidant-oriented, I want to invite you to get back to neutral. So that is going to be, I can already tell you, the tool that I want you to come away with. If you are ready, like, yes, I'm ready, fantastic, I'm going to give you more. Before the episode really even dives in, I'm going to give you some stuff. Grab your journal or a really good friend to dialogue with. Here we go. Individual culture. I want you to write that down. Your individual culture is unique to your experiences, your thoughts, your feelings, your behaviors. Your identities, roles, the lived experiences that you've had within your family, your family's lived experiences, and then the history of your family, as well as the history related to any identities or roles that you possess. You picking up what I'm putting down? I hope that you are. Your individual culture is, again, it's unique to you. You have an individual culture. I have an individual culture. And so when we think about courage, healing, and belonging, and in this particular episode, how can we be courageous? It's really important that we get curious about what kind of values are present on our individual culture islands. You might recognize that you are very approach-oriented, right? That you really want to lean in, that you're driven to move forward, and that what you actually need to be practicing is taking that step back or a pause or a slow down so you can truly get to neutral. If you're telling me, no, Nina, that's not me, I have a tendency to be more avoidant. Even if avoidance is a big value on your island, right? If it's oriented that way to naturally avoid things, my invitation to you is going to be, how can we say, let's lean into that edge and not just rely on that habitual way of being in the world? How can we gain some skills in leaning in and getting to neutral? I hope y'all realized getting to neutral is going to be the goal here, okay? So get out your journals. That is the one piece that I wanted to drop before we get into the episode too deeply. There is actually, lies from me, second piece, there is one other thing. I am recording this after I've recorded the episode for you. And one of the things that I share in the episode is a moment in which if there's physical imminent threat, right? There is more than just physical danger when we're talking about your individual culture. Emotional threats, psychological threats, all of these are valid, real, can be, right? Valid, real threats. It depends on the situation. I don't really specify that in the episode, and I do think it's important for us to remember that context matters. So, without further ado, get your journals. We're going to be exploring courage. We're going to figure out, what is your individual culture island more oriented toward? Are you more approach oriented? You want to lean in and try to figure things out? Or are you more avoidant oriented and you're not really about that life? Either way, my invitation to you is going to be to practice courageously trying to get yourself to neutral. And I am going to explain so much more in the episode. So for now, I shall pause. And I shall pass the mic on over to you because you know that I am curious. Are you ready to play? Welcome to Empowered Human, the dramatically playful podcast that invites you to heal humanity, the one within you, me, and the world at large. I'm your host, drama therapist, empowerment specialist, and not to mention empowered human, Nina Garcia, and I'm so stoked you're joining me on the journey. Every Wednesday, you are invited to explore transforming from powered to empowered with genuinely human stories of courageous existence, healing from invalidation, and truly belonging to you. So wherever you are on the spectrum, from empowerment curious to empowered human ambassador, this podcast is designed to humanize. Get ready to lean into your edge, heal your worldview, and finally belong to you. This is Empowered Human. Quick reminder for those of you, before we get into the episode, who are really interested in diving in deeper, the Empowered Human Quest has just launched. Applications are open and they close on August 25th. So if you are wanting to dive deeper, wanting to work with me in playful ways to help you stop hiding parts of yourself for other people's comfort and start owning your truth so you can vibrantly show up and exist everywhere you go, now is the time. The link will be in the show notes. Apply for the Empowered Human Quest if that sounds like you. Otherwise, let's get back to the episode. Let's go ahead and take a breath in, just inhaling and exhaling, whatever you end up needing in this moment to really bring you into this space. We are, of course, exploring courage, right? What is courage? Let's get a basic definition down. Courage is the ability to lean in and move forward with something despite discomfort or stickiness, or it being scary. It's your ability to lean in even when something is scary. So this is really important because already we have our first question of the episode. Would you identify as courageous? Would you identify as somebody who leans in even when something is scary, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's sticky? The reason why we want to clarify what courage is in the empowered human world is because it may be very different than in reality when you are out there with an actual moment that is dangerous. Scary is different than dangerous. So here is your number 2 thing that I want you to write down, folks. The difference between scary and dangerous. Scary is perceived threat, Feel scary, think it's scary, right? Feel scary, perceived threat. On the other hand, you have dangerous. Dangerous, actual threat, real harm, yes? So, the difference between scary and dangerous is really important if you're trying to show up more courageously. For those of you who are exploring leaning into the empowered human lifestyle, it is about owning your truth and embracing all parts of yourself. Now, this can, of course, be very scary when you might be hiding parts of you. You might be hiding parts of your own existence. Why? Because other people may not feel comfortable with it, and they may have told you that they don't feel comfortable with it. And so what was your response? Oh my gosh, I don't want to feel smaller. I don't want to feel like I'm outside. I don't want to feel like an outsider or an outcast or like I don't belong. So let me just shut it down. Let me get quieter and smaller and minimize myself. All of that is survival oriented. It says I still want to be able to show up and I don't want to be hurt for showing up as I am. I hear you. I hear you, and if I could invite you in this episode to acknowledge the parts of you that you have hidden for your own safety, and if we could give you the tools to courageously exist, my invitation is for you to ask yourself, would you want them? Would you be open to owning your truth and embracing every part of you so that you can confidently go wherever you go, feeling like you are embracing all of yourself? It doesn't mean that everyone in the world is going to embrace you. What it means to show up as an empowered human and courageously exist is that you will own your truth and embrace it so that everywhere you go, you carry home within you. You don't need somebody else to validate your existence because you know inherently you are valid. So when I invite you to think about scary versus dangerous, it's really important because when you think about showing up as yourself, your fullest self, I really want you to get a handle on what is actually scary and what is actually dangerous. Put that down in your journal. If that is what your adventure challenge needs to be for this upcoming week, then by all means, please take that and run with it, okay? Really asking yourself the difference between scary and dangerous. I am going to keep moving forward for those of you who say, okay, Nina, I've got it. Give me a little bit more. I got a little bit more. If we want to show up courageously, it means that we are leaning in. And so, when you are leaning in, you are willing to approach something. Now, this is, of course, very much opposed to the part of your brain that says, that's scary, that could be potentially dangerous, we don't want to deal with that, let's back away, let's avoid it. Write that down. Your brain, in trying to get you to be safe and sound, is going to give you moments where it sees something or feels something happen out there in the real world. And it is going to say, perceived threat, we need to report, release, get rid of this, exit, stage left, all these things. It does not want you to approach at all. Now, in the case of actual danger, it's really important that you know whether you need to approach or avoid. But in the case of something scary, and I'm going to give you an example in a minute of how scary is different than dangerous. In the case of something scary, your brain may still tell you, avoid this at all costs, when really what you could be doing is approaching it in an empowered way and really being able to show up as your fullest, most vibrant self. Only you will be able to decide this, right? In the context of your own situation in your own life. But I want to give you these ways of really shifting your mindset from a disempowered or codependent or avoidant or even a powered dynamic to an empowered dynamic. In an empowered world, you are carrying the power. You know you are inherently valid. So here is what this skill looks like when you say, Nina, I want to practice courage. I know that you have told me that in order to do that, I have to understand the difference between scary and dangerous. And I know that once I understand the difference between scary and dangerous, if I want to practice courage, you're telling me I have to approach it in a particular way instead of avoiding it. And I am telling you, yes. Now, one caveat before I really go into what courage and approach looks like for your brain is this. You have to have capacity. If you are at the end of your work day or work week and you are tired and you have not been well and your job is stressful and you are stressed out, and then somebody does something and you're like, oh, I want to engage with this in an empowered way, but you know what? I'm exhausted, Nina. You sound like you are vulnerable, friend. You may not have capacity to approach that at all. And that has to be okay. Sometimes we will not have the capacity. And I promise you, you can still do that and engage with that moment in an empowered way without approaching it in the way that you might be thinking. Listen in and allow me to explain. When we come from a neutral space, and I want you to start there. Let's imagine you're walking down the street, la 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 la. Everything's okay. Everything is fine. You're in a totally neutral space. And we know that in a neutral space, it's a space of openness. It's a space of possibility. It's a space where anything can happen. You can go up, down, side to side, back and forth, and all around. Again, when you are truly in a neutral space in your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, it's a space for possibility. It's a space for openness. But let's say you're in that neutral space and you're walking down the street and somebody says something to you. Maybe there's someone you know. Maybe it's a stranger. Maybe it's a billboard. Maybe it's something you hear on the radio. But somebody says something, and the message that is sent out is, you're not enough. Maybe you don't fit in. You don't belong here. You're too much, you're not enough. Whatever the message is, it is an invalidating message. And the second it hits you, you feel it. Your brain says, threat, threat, threat. And in this moment, you have a choice. We can't stop your brain from recognizing this as a perceived threat. It is, after all, something that is trying to invalidate your existence, right? Or at least a part of your existence. And you're no longer in neutral, right? But here you are recognizing, is it scary or is it dangerous? I hope you are saying in this moment that it's just scary, right? We're just going to imagine it's just scary. And in that moment you say, I don't want to feel this discomfort. What do I need in order to approach this differently? Do I need to lean in to approach this by changing my thoughts, my feelings, or my behaviors? What needs to happen right now? Because if I am walking down the street and all of a sudden feel very small because of an invalidating message that came about any part of my identity, my race, my ethnicity, my socioeconomic status, my gender, my sexual orientation, my fill in the blank, humanity, any invalidating narrative about my humanity, and now I am made smaller, I have the opportunity to lean in and approach that. In my body, if I were to change it, right, I said thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. In my body, I might say, oh wait, I don't want to be small right now. I might breathe into my chest and let my shoulders relax, and I might take up space because I am not small and I am valid. And if I notice in my feelings that I'm feeling very rejected, like I don't fit in, like I don't belong, I might take a breath into that emotional space, lean in and approach that feeling and say, wait a minute, I love that part of me. I love the way that I exist in this moment, or I'm learning to love the way that I exist in this moment, and I am valid. If you're going to change a thought, my beautiful being, you are out there and you're saying, wait a minute, I'm thinking that I'm not enough, that I deserve to be smaller, that I shouldn't be here, when really, I know that I deserve to be here. I know that I deserve to take up space. I believe that. I am valid. All of the ways that I just shared are ways that you can lean in and courageously approach your own existence when an invalidating message comes your way. It is critically important that you know that courage means leaning in, even when it's uncomfortable, because it's just really scary. Now, I did tell you that I would separate and offer an example between scary and dangerous. Dangerous, as an example, is I'm walking down the street, we'll go back to that, and I'm in neutral. La, 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 la. And then I see someone come around the corner and they have a knife in their hand. And the knife doesn't seem really threatening, and then they see me, and they see the way that I'm walking, and they see what I'm wearing, and they see the way that I look, and I am humaning in the world. I haven't done a single thing to them except exist at this point. Let's be really clear. All I have done is exist. And that knife all of a sudden goes up, and they pointed at me. They say, you, people like you. And all of a sudden, we have gone from scary to dangerous. Dangerous. I could be in physical harm in this moment. Somebody could physically harm me in this moment simply because I am existing. There is a difference between scary and dangerous. If you are in a dangerous moment, we need your body to respond and react accordingly so it can get you to safety. But this episode is not about dangerous moments. It's about all of the scary moments that you're going to have that your brain has been telling you is dangerous. We have a lot of scary moments when you are different, when you don't fit in, when you do not belong in the world in the way that other people think you should exist. And yet you are valid. So when you are in your regular neutral state and all of a sudden something happens in your environment that invalidates you, it is time to practice recognizing that that is scary, not dangerous. And that if you can practice courageously leaning in and approaching that moment in a very particular intentional way, then you, my beautiful being friend, you can courageously exist. This is the empowered human way. We understand that we exist differently. People are not always going to like me. They're not going to like how I think, feel, and behave. And you know what? I am valid. You are valid. And every time you come upon a sticky or uncomfortable moment and you have capacity to engage and lean in courageously with that moment, I want you to approach it from a capital E, empowered space. I want you to ask yourself, do I need to change my thought, feeling, or behavior on this? What do I need in order to show up more vibrantly in this moment, owning my truth and embracing all of my parts? Because I am valid everywhere I go. It doesn't matter what other people believe. I am practicing, remembering, recognizing, noticing, creating, defining, whatever your word is. You are practicing knowing inherently that you are valid. You matter everywhere you go. So that is going to be the adventure challenge for you, my beautiful friend, this upcoming week. I want you to explore courageously existing, sort of like I just did right there, right? Show up, embrace all of your parts. And the thing is, you don't even have to do this with other people. This can be a totally internal experience for you. I just want you to, adventure challenge 1, recognize the difference between scary and dangerous moments. I bet you have a lot more scary moments than dangerous moments. But I want you to start to check in and boost that self-awareness. Is this scary or is this dangerous? I'm feeling uncomfortable. Is this scary or is this dangerous? Okay? Every time you feel a discomfort, that's your adventure challenge for this upcoming week. If you're like, Nina, wait, I've got that. I know the difference between scary and dangerous. What's the next thing I'm supposed to do? Fantastic. Thanks for asking. If you've got the difference between scary and dangerous, you are going to say, oh my gosh, I recognize this is a scary moment, and what is it that I need to shift about myself, not about somebody, it's about myself, in order to feel more comfortable in this moment, to bring myself back to neutral? Is it a thought, feeling, or behavior that I need to lean in and approach so that I can shift it and courageously exist? If you are at that space, you are really saying, I recognize the uncomfortable moment and I'm still willing to lean in and approach it differently so that I can own my truth and embrace all the parts of myself. That is the only thing that I want you to practice this upcoming week. That is your adventure challenge. I know some of you are going to be overachievers and you're going to be like, but Nina, what about the other people? I can already do that. I know when it is, but what am I supposed to say to them? Well, you may want to come to an Empowered Human Live if that is you. In the live groups that we have 2 or 3 of them coming up this month of August. Go RSVP for an Empowered Human Live. It will be in the notes, but you will get a live hour with me. You'll get to ask me those questions about how do you use this skill with others? How do you practice courageously existing in an empowered way with others? Why an empowered way? I'm so glad you asked. Because when we exist in an empowered way, you own your truth and you embrace all your parts so you can vibrantly exist. And it is an expectation that others can own their truths and vibrantly exist as they are. Vibrantly existing is one thing, not harming each other. I'm not giving people permission to harm, and I don't want you to give people permission to harm. But that we are valid, and that we remember we are valid, and that we practice validating ourselves and validating others just for existing is critical to the empowered human lifestyle. And it's critical to courageous existence. So, without further ado, thank you so much for listening in. Go ahead and mark down your adventure challenge right now. Mark down what it is. Check out the show notes if you're looking to join that Empowered Human Live. And just as a goodie, we do have the Empowered Human Quest right now. If you are really saying you want to dive in with me, I'm only accepting 10 people. It is an intimate group in which we dive deep into identity empowerment. If you are out there saying, Nina, I am still hiding parts of myself for other people's comfort, my friend, please come to a live, talk with us in the group, get to know about the Empowered Human Quest. It launches in September. We have just a few weeks left where we officially open the enrollment for this, of course. Apply. It will be in the show notes if this sounds like it's your jam, okay? Y'all, stay curious, do the thing. I am here with you doing my own work, and thank you for listening in. Thank you so much for being willing to explore healing your humanity on Empowered Human. I hope you found at least one new way to transform your worldview from powered to empowered. If you took something from the show, please take a moment of your time and subscribe to Empowered Human. And if it really nourished you, leave us a review. Your feedback helps me understand what our community needs. Not to mention, it helps others discover the empowered human life. So keep this last bit in mind. All the visual goodies come with me on Instagram at Drama Therapist Nina. Stay up to date there on upcoming episodes, behind the scenes goodness, and reels dropping knowledge. Thank you again for being part of the empowered human community. Until next time, stay curious.